Am I audible to you? Yes, Gopal. Kritika, Praveen, Srini. How are you today, Srini? Raghu, how are you doing? Fantastic. Let's get it started. So, the week 15 after the Q&A. Fatima, she's also here. All right. So, we know the trick, right? So, in the first half will be the questions in the I'll ask you 20 questions just to check the level of preparation that we have so far. And then in the second half, I'll take the questions. So if you have any questions, okay? So let's start with the first part. And for that, I'm sharing my screen with you. Let me know when you see something on the screen, please. Do you guys see the screen? Please use the chat box. Yes, Praveen. Awesome. Okay, so let's get it started. So this is week number 15. And did you get a chance to see my LinkedIn wall today or yesterday? Yesterday, in one day, six of our participants appeared in the PMP, passed the PMP. Did you see that? I shared those posts, all from the IMC, right? So, yeah, that's a good thing. Let's start with the questions first. Question number one. All right, read the question. You are leading a large regulatory driven program using a hybrid delivery method. So predictive plus HR is equals to hybrid, right? During the execution, a regulatory body issues a clarification stating that while the regulations itself has not changed, further audits will evaluate compliance based on a stricter interpretation. Your sponsor argues that since the requirements existed before the baseline approval, no change management is needed, right? So, contradicting views on that, right? Multiple teams are already executing based on the earlier interpretation. And reversing the work could impact the schedule and the cost. No audit has occurred yet. What should you do now? You see, the question which says what you should do next, what you should do first, what you should do now. These are the trickiest of the questions. What you should do now. Read the options. The Ragu is the first one to answer. Ragu goes Delta. Kritika says it should be Delta. Okay. Come on. What about rest of us? Gopal goes, Charlie, continue execution and address issues only if an audit fails. Okay. What's the PMI's mindset about when you find yourself in these situations? What's the flow tells us? It tells us analysis and then the action, right? Now, as per that, what should be the right answer? The delta. Perform an impact analysis to assess the compliance gaps and response options. You do the analysis first and then only. So if you talk about alpha, that's an immediate action, right? Charlie is an immediate action. Bravo is a viable option. But then you submit a change request based on what? Based on the analysis. First, you figure out the options, the response options, and accordingly, you go with the change request. That is why. You see why the PMI expects analysis before the formal change or the stoppage. This is called the PMI's mindset about how the PMI suggests you we should go ahead with these situations. Question number two, ladies and gentlemen. You're managing a fixed price contract in a critical system component. The vendor consistently meets their delivery dates. He's doing good, by the way. And all the deliverables technically pass the contractual acceptance test. However, defect trends show increase in rework during the integration. The key stakeholders are losing confidence. The contract does not include penalties for this level of quality degradation. Termination would significantly delay the whole program. What is the most appropriate action? All of these could be the actions. Which one is the most appropriate? There, Gopal. Gopal goes, bravo. How are you today, Gopal? So it's a fixed price contract. The vendor is doing good. There is nothing wrong as per the acceptance criteria. But the trend shows increase in rework due to integration. So when you start integrating it with the other components, that's where the problem starts coming. What is the best option? The most appropriate action? Kaushik, how are you today, Kaushik? Just saw you, buddy. So the answer should be to sit with the vendor, address the quality within the existing contract terms. Correct? You cannot terminate the contract just because it is declined in the trust, just because the integration has a problem. So the problem is with our existing acceptance criteria based on the quality parameters that we define for the vendor. Sit with them, look at that framework, update that. That's the best way to move forward. Question number three, ladies and gentlemen. Within a multi-team agile project, agile program, one team deliberately commits to significantly less work than the historical performance. Citing uncertainty and the risk buffering, the velocity is stable, but the sustainability lower than dependent teams, causing the integration delays. The team argues that predictability has improved and that they are following the agile principles. Other teams are frustrated. Of course, they will be. What should you do? Think about it. Goes back to servant leadership. This is where this is going. Samir goes with the delta. Haithram goes Charlie. Gopal goes delta. Okay. But then the velocity is stable, isn't it? It says the velocity is stable. It is lower than as compared to the other teams, but that's a stable velocity. Okay, so the answer is Charlie. It is to facilitate the cross team discussion on capability planning and flow. Why? Because that's how we collaborate. So, what the PMI says, as a servant leader, you collaborate with the people, go in participative practices, right? Do the root cause analysis, know why the other team is going lower on velocity as compared to the other one, set up those targets, have build the consensus, and then move ahead. You know, okay, it actually talks about it. You see, the PMI emphasizes this servant leadership and system optimization rather than enforcing matrices or redistributing the work prematurely. Bingo, exactly what I said, right? Question number 4. During a steering committee meeting, a senior stakeholder verbally agrees on a major scope enhancement after hearing its strategic benefits. So during the meeting, he said, all right, so that's a good thing to do. Let's go ahead with that. Based on the discussion, your team begins implementation. Weeks later, the same stakeholder disputes the cost increase, stating no formal approval was given. Problem. Funding is now questioned. Looking back, what should have been your best immediate action at the time of agreement? That should be easy, actually. It should be an easy question because the question itself gave the answer. If you read closely, the Samir says Alpha and Charlie both the viable options. Okay, what's Charlie? Assume sponsor back in covers the funding changes. Okay, no, that's not an appropriate answer. I humbly disagree with you. The projects you can't assume that somebody is going to give you the money. Okay, you see what's the PMI's mindset? The PMI says that it's not a part of your scope until it is signed off, until it is authorized, until it is formal. It should be in black and white. It should never be in gray. Assume, yep, exactly. You cannot run that based on assumptions, can you? Right? Okay, so the answer is alpha. The PMI required document. Bingo. Did I say that? I mean, I've written the question, so I already know the answers. That's another thing. The PMI requires documentation authorization for this scope and the cost. There we go. All right. Verbal consensus is insufficient. Okay. One trick, ladies and gentlemen, during the PMP exam, if the question doesn't say that explicitly, that it's an agile project or a hybrid project, then by default, it's a predictive project. Remember that. That will help you to answer many questions during the examination. You understood what I just said? If the question does not tell you explicitly that this is an agile project or a hybrid project, then by default it is predictive methodology. Okay? Remember this thing. Question number 5. As execution progresses, several medium probability risks materialize at the same time. Individually, each risk causes minor disruption and does not exceed escalation thresholds. Collectively, they are now threatening a critical milestone and impacting the team morale. The risk register was regularly reviewed. How should this situation have been best anticipated? This is actually, during our classes, it was one of the discussion points in the risk management area. We talked about it. I don't know. Hey, how many of you are my participants here? Say I in my classes. How many of you sat in my classes? Kritika, with Divya, Miss Renee. Okay. Kaushik, Myanmar. Then these people definitely knows. These people definitely knows the answer. It's about individual project risks and the overall project risks. Remember that? You see, individually, the risk might not cross the threshold because that's an individual risk. So the individual risks I can manage within the thresholds, right? Within the predefined limits. Now that's where it takes us back to the risk strategy topic, which was about uh, the thresholds and the risk appetite. Yeah, the individual risk appetite and the organizational thresholds. So individually, they might not cross the thresholds. Okay. But then you also have overall project risks. That means if I put all of these risks together and see what's the total contingency reserve that I need in terms of time, in terms of cost, is this crossing the threshold? Okay. That's the overall risk assessment. I just literally gave you the answer. So what's the answer? The answer is bravo, you analyze overall and cumulative project risk exposure. There we go. That's why I said if you were in my class, you should be able to give the answer. All right. Question number six. A multi-vendor integration is slipping because two critical vendors use conflicting authentication schemas. Your architect proposes introducing a mediator service that translates these schemas, but once it adds a small runtime cost and additional support obligations. The vendor resists changes to their contracts, which uh, which aligns best with the program delivery and long-term maintainability. So I'll tell you in a nutshell what is happening. One vendor is using end-to-end individual authentication, right? So let's say the handshake method, that's the schema. The other one is using a UAM, the user authentication module, which goes back, checks with the backend database, authenticates information, and then allow the access, right? So these are two different schemas, all right? As per their contracts, they're doing fine, but then when it comes to the integration, that's where the problem comes. What you should do as a project manager. Consider in both the program delivery and long-term maintainability. So, if you go with the process of elimination, it is actually an easy question to answer. Well, uh, uh, I messed up. Okay, forget about this question. So, when I was pasting them from the Word document, I did something wrong. Anyways, is this the okay? Leave that one. So I missed a slide on that. Okay. So question number seven, let's read this one. By the way, the answer to that question was alpha. Just so you know, the answer to the previous question was alpha. Okay. Near the end of a predictive project, the quality control identifies defects that fall within documented tolerance limits but noticeably degrade the user experience. Fixing them will exceed remaining scheduled reserves. The customer has not yet reviewed the deliverables. What is the most appropriate action? All right, multiple layers in this question, three different layers. Read the question again if it is required. Although the defect is within the tolerance limits, but degrades the user experience. You see, there is nothing wrong in going alpha, right? Because if it is a part of my scope, if it is within the thresholds, I could actually go ahead with that. But the problem is that it increases the user dissatisfaction, right? So at the end of the day, what's the whole idea behind doing the projects? What's at the core of project management? Tell me what the PMI says. The core of the project management is to deliver value. Value delivery. Yes, Kritika. So, what's the whole point of delivering a product which is not delivering the value to them? Okay. Now, because of that, the answer is to request the approval for the additional time and cost to address the defects because it is pre UAT. The customer, the last part is the customer has not reviewed the deliverables yet. All right. So, Delta is the best answer, most appropriate action. Question number 8. A highly engaged sponsor frequently bypasses the governance by giving the direct instructions to the team members, resulting in shift in the priorities and decline in the morale. Although well intentioned, the behavior is undermining the agreed project plan. What should you do? He is not he comes with a good faith, okay? So he comes with a good faith. He's enthusiastic, and that's why he tells you, hey buddy, let's do this thing, let's do that thing, right? And that changes the priorities, shifts the priorities. What you should do. And he's the sponsor, by the way. Okay, so the answer should be to clarify the roles, authorities, and the decision paths with the sponsor. Sit with him and tell him, Mr. Sponsor, you are fantastic. You come with a good faith, you come with a good mindset. But the problem is, sir, it shifts the priority. So let's just define the process, right? Let's define the process that you have a change request, you wanted a change, you please tell me, sir. I'll see how do I fix that within those sprints if I'm working on an HR project or within the project plan if I'm working on a predictive methodology project. Direct expectations set and align with the PMI's preference for communication before the escalation. That's the PMI's mindset. Question number 9. Midway through the execution, earned value analysis shows the CPI is 1.06 and the SPI is 0.91. The sponsor is pleased with the cost performance and questions the need for the corrective action. What is the most appropriate response? Okay, tell me. If the CPI is 1.06 and SPI is 0.91, what that suggests? What that suggests, tell me before you give me the answer. Good. It suggests that the cost is going pretty good, but then you are behind the schedule. Work ahead of the schedule. No, work behind the schedule and under budgeted. That's what it tells you. All right. So what's the answer? Because my schedule is behind, I need to start working on that. My cost is fine. So even if I have to take some extra cost to do a bit of crashing or maybe the fast tracking, I should be able to do that. So the cost is also one, and my schedule is also one. Correct? Question number 10. The lessons learned are collected only during the project closing. Multiple teams report that the same issues occurred repeatedly across the phases, but we never addressed in time. What does this most directly indicate? Kritika literally jumped on Charlie. Praveen goes Delta, Vinod goes Delta. Okay. So the answer is actually Delta, lack of continuous knowledge sharing mechanism. You remember how many processes do we have in integration when it comes to the execution part? You remember that? How many processes do we have in integration in execution? Two processes, right? One is the direct and managed project work. The two is managing the project knowledge, correct? So the PMI says the moment you start the execution, you go into managing the project knowledge process. And it's an iterative process. You keep updating the lessons learned throughout the life of the project. And at the end of the project, during the closure, because the closure itself is divided into three different parts. One, the handover. Two, the value realization. Three, updating the learnings back to the OPA, right? So during the closure, we update those learnings back to the organizational process assets. But how would you do that if you were not updating them throughout the life of the project? There should be a mechanism that maybe once a week or maybe once in fortnight we sit together, we talk about those lessons that we have learned in the last couple of, and that's the whole purpose of doing the retrospectives. That's the whole purpose of doing the lessons learned meetings, group discussions that we have, right? So you need to plan those things within the project that every 2 weeks we can take about half an hour. Every couple of weeks we'll sit with the team, we'll look back in the last 2 weeks what we learned, we update those things, and then you update that onto the OPA at the end of the project, right? So the PMI expects continuous capture and application of the lessons learned to prevent the reoccurrence, right? Exactly what I just explained to you. Question number 11. You are managing a global infrastructure project with teams across three time zones. During a weekly review, the sponsor highlights that the overall progress feels slow despite reports showing the milestones largely on track. At the same time, a detailed dashboard shows several non critical activities trending late, but the float remaining with the float remaining. A senior manager proposes immediately fast track and multiple work packages to regain the momentum. Unquote. What should you do? So the thing is that the milestones are on track, largely on track. Okay, but then there are non-critical activities which are trending delayed, late, but we still have the float. Okay, so the answer is to explain the difference between perceived progress and the critical path impact before deciding an action. Alpha. So the analysis, then the action. The same trick of the question number one. You analyze the situation, then you take an action. Approving fast track and a rebaselining increasing the reporting frequency. These are all the actions. And you take these actions only after the analysis. So alpha is analysis, the rest of the three are the actions. Question number 12. In a hybrid project, the AHL teams report stable velocity while the predictive streams shows increase in variance in the task completion. A detailed variance report highlights multiple causes, including learning curves, holidays, and the tool upgrades. The sponsor asks for a single corrective action. What is the best response? You see, that's a very common case that you see in hybrid projects. The AHL components, they work based on the velocity. The predictive components work based on the variance from the baseline, right? So it's a very common case, actually, very realistic question. Tell me, what should be that one single corrective action? Okay, two potential answers. You can go alpha, you can go Charlie. Kaushik goes alpha. Okay, I'm going to go Charlie. Analyze the variances that affects the project objectives before proposing. First, you do the analysis to see that which part is actually the reason. Is that the predictive part of the AHL project? And then you decide on the further action, right? Question number 13. Late in the execution, a quality audit identifies several process non-conformities that do not affect current deliverables but may impact the future phases. Fixing them now would consume management reserve. The sponsor performs to address them, prefers to address them if they become real problems. What should you do? There are NCs related to the processes. That means the quality audit. Figure those out. Okay. A rather easy question, right? Recommend corrective actions and explain long-term risk implications. Hey, how many of you were in my last Q&A? How many of you attended the last Q&A? You did? What horrible questions I asked you that time. Yeah. People scored 12 out of 20, 13 out of 20. So when I was writing these, I said, let's not make it that big. That tough, right? It was a tough one. Yes. So those were tough ones. Yes, because in between you need the tough questions, right? Because the PMI is gonna ask you like, so if you notice today, there are big scenarios and there are small scenarios as well, right? Did you notice that? I've got six correct out of 20. Jesus. The best that I had was like 13 questions out of 20. That was the best performance that I saw last week. So this week, when I started designing these, I thought of keeping a mix of the long scenarios, short scenarios, PMI's mindset, servant leadership. I tried to include those things. Question number 14. During a sprint review, the stakeholders raise multiple enhancement requests while also expressing concerns about the release timing. You see, that's contradicting, right? So, at one place, I want to increase more features, And at the same time, I'm concerned about the release time and that my release may be delayed because of that, right? The product owner presents a complex backlog prioritization model that few stakeholders understand. Tensions rises and decisions stall. What should you do? Accept the enhancements to maintain the stakeholders' satisfaction. Delay the release to accommodate all the requests. Ask the product owner to simplify the explanation of the trade offs and escalate the prioritization decisions to the sponsor. All right, the correct answer. Ask the product owner to simplify the explanation of the trade off. So, can I get a video recordings of the previous and today's session? Qasim, I hope this is how you pronounce your name, is it? Uh, so all of these videos are going on to the YouTube, right? So if you check, we have already uploaded the last Q&A session on our YouTube channel, right? So the IMC certification YouTube channel, it is already available there. And that was a good one, I'll tell you. On purpose, I made it so tough. So that was the 14th week. I said, okay, I'm gonna test your nerves this time. Okay, question number 15. A project is trending under budget but slightly behind the schedule. So it's under budget but behind. So that means the CPIs are good. SPI is less than one, slightly less than one. Detailed cost report shows a saving from delayed hiring, while the schedule reports indicates upcoming dependency tasks risks. The sponsor suggests using a cost saving later if delays worsen. What should you do? He's actually right, in my opinion, that there's not a it's not a bad idea. He suggests use the cost. If the delay goes worse, then you should use the cost. Charlie cannot be the answer. Delta cannot be the answer. The answer has to be between Alpha and Bravo. So if you gave Charlie and Delta as the answer, that's the wrong answer. I can tell you that right now. So I'm leaving you with two choices: Alpha or Bravo. Kaushik goes Bravo. Hey, Kaushik, I was just messing with you when I said that. Okay. The sponsors are just using the cost save later. Hey, who's this? Who's making those gravities on my screen? Somebody is. I'll get rid of this. Okay. So the answer is alpha. You address the schedule risk now rather than relying on cost saving later, because the future cost saving is an assumption, right? So the projects do not run purely on the assumptions, right? Simple as that. And you prioritize the risk. What's the current risk? The current risk is the scheduled risk. Let's start working on that. Question 16. A key stakeholder frequently requests detailed technical explanations during the executive meetings, consuming the time and frustrating the others. However, their questions often reveals genuine risks. What is the best approach? Is it Alpha? Is it Bravo? Samir? Bravo. So when we were reading about the meetings during our classes, we said we need to attend and participate in meeting efficiently and effectively. We should have a very clearly defined agenda and we should stick to the agenda points. And if there is somebody who interjects with a point which is not a part of the agenda, then it is your responsibility as the project manager to come up and say, hey, Mr. Stakeholder, you want to have a discussion on that? Let's have a separate meeting on this. Let's not waste the time of the others, right? So that is what you should do. This is what we talked about back in our discussion during the classes, right? And as per that, Bravo should be the answer. Schedule separate deep dive sessions while keeping the executive meetings focused. Stick to the agenda points. You want to do something, or let's have a separate meeting. You want to say something, let's have a deep dive into it. Okay. Question 17, ladies and gentlemen. During execution, an assumption documented early becomes invalid. Okay. And no immediate issues has surfaced. So although it is invalid now, but there is no impact. At least now there are no issues. Several team members suggest waiting to see if it actually causes the problems. What should you do? Remind me again, what's the difference between a risk and an issue? Remind me that. A risk is a potential issue, okay? Unmitigated risks turns into issues. The risk is a probability that something may or may not happen in the future, but the issue is the reality. So when your risk is materialized, that's when it becomes an issue, correct? So wait until an issue materializes. Analyze potential impacts and update the plans accordingly. Escalate immediately to this. Okay, easy answer. The answer is to analyze the potential impact and update your plans accordingly. Question number 18, ladies and gentlemen. A supplier informs you of a potential delay due to internal restructuring. The delay is not yet confirmed and may not affect the critical path. The sponsor demands immediate action. What is the most appropriate response? So, three layers in this question again. All right. The answer is to assess the schedule impact and prepare the response options. All right. Although the delay is not yet confirmed, and it may or may not impact the critical path. But before you decide anything, before you take any action, you do an assessment of what could be a potential impact just in case it fails, just in case it hits the critical path. So, how much of the reserve that I have? What's my contingency? What's my management? Look at those factors. Then you take a decision. PMI favors informed decision making. Action follows impact analysis, not the speculation. Absolutely, yes. Question number 19. The team morale is declining despite meeting most of those milestones. A detailed survey reveals confusion about decision authority rather than workload issues. It's more to do with the decision making than the workload itself. What should you prioritize? I would have gone Delta, right? Replacing the underperforming managers. And then the PMI will expel me from the PMI's world forever. Right? The PMI is going to be like, your doors to the PMI are closed forever. They, anyways, don't invite me anymore. Hey, did I tell you that story during the class? No, I'll tell you some other day. That's a recorded line that goes onto the YouTube, right? That's not the internal recorded. So maybe some other day I'll tell you that story. Okay. Okay. So the answer is to clarify the governance and the decision rights. Have this clarity, right? So whenever you are in a situation where there is a dispute happening because of one party thinks something else, the other party thinks something else, sit with them, build the consensus, look, go do the root cause analysis, plan the actions accordingly. VMI recognizes clarity of authority as a foundational to the team effectiveness. These are absolutely connected to each other. Last question for today, ladies and gentlemen. At the project closure, uh, the stakeholders debate whether the project should be considered a success. The scope was delivered, costs were controlled, but benefit realization is uncertain. What should guide the final assessment? Okay, good question. And anybody who's my student should be able to answer that. If you sat in my class, we specifically talk about that. So, three different parts to the closure. We actually talked about that today. One, the handover. Two, the benefit realization. Three is the lessons learned update. A small scenario, but it's a tricky question. I can tell you that. Isn't that? It's a two-line question. It's a tricky one. And mixed responses. I have seen alphas in this. I have seen bravos in this, charlies and deltas, all on the chat window. Somebody gave a wrong answer, definitely, right? Okay. So what's the answer? The answer is the original business case and success criteria. Ladies and gentlemen, if the question is not telling you it's an agile project or a hybrid project, is by default the predictive project. During the predictive projects, when you define the project scope statement, you're gonna define two different things. One, the acceptance criteria. Two, the scope. All right. Now, and the project chart development, when that happened, the business case and the benefit management plans were the inputs to it, right? And that also is used further when you collect the requirements, define in the scope, doing those things, right? So once it has been established that these are the tangible benefits, these are the intangible benefits that we are trying to achieve from this project. That's the list of the benefit owners who will be benefited. Hey, one more thing. In predictive methodology, benefit owner could be anybody, right? So right from the operational manager to the business analyst to your sponsor, anybody can report on the benefits. Whereas in HL, there is only one benefit owner. Who's that in HL projects? The product owner, right? So we talked about all of those things. Now, as per that, you stick to your business case and the success criteria. The project scope statement contains the success criteria based on the requirements. So we already established that these are the success criteria points. You agreed with it, the team agreed with it, the customer agreed with it. Now, this was also a part of building that shared understanding about the elements of the project. The topic Charlie, lesson number 2. All right. Was that? Yeah, lesson number 2, topic Charlie. right? So that's where again we talked about this point. So the PMI defines success against agreed business objective, not the perceptions or the sentiments. Although, I mean, saying that, I would still maintain that when it comes to the tangible benefits, you can go ahead and do a quantitative risk analysis, the numerical analysis to check, so the tangible benefit, the example of the tangible benefit is that we want to do as one of the objectives of the project, we wanted to do a cost saving of $10,000 in the quarter one, right? Now that's a tangible number. So I can use a numerical analysis to check that, did I do $10,000 or $9,000 or $8,000, right? So I can have a check on that. But then when it comes to the intangible, say potential market growth, because that's a new domain that we are venturing into that might open up, the pathway to many potential clients. Now that is intangible. You are not defining how many clients, you're not defining the number. In that case, you can actually go into the subjective analysis, which is the qualitative analysis, the based on the perceptions of the team. But that does not fit in here in this scenario. I'm just saying that it could have been one of the areas if there is those intangible benefits. And the benefit management plan contains both of these. All right. So that was about the question number 20. Okay, success criteria is DOD, right? And absolutely, yes, Kaushik. So the DOD is the success criteria for the HL. It's kind of a checklist in which you have all of those checkboxes. Once these are checked, you consider that project as delivered. All right, tell me your scores today. I'm hoping that you got all 20 correct. What's your score? Come on. 17, good, Paul. 13 out of 14. 18 out of 20. 14, Kaushik. 17, 16. Okay. For today's Q&A, I considered that there would be somebody who will score 20 or 19, because I tried to keep a match of big and small questions, not like the previous, because in previous week I realized, you know, there's no way that they're going to score all 20. Right? So 13 or 14, Mrinmoy. Okay. Omar got 15 out of 16. That's good. That's good. Umar, you joined late, buddy? What happened? Okay. So those were the first 20 questions. Now what we can do, we're going to take a break. And after the break, we'll do the Q&A in terms of if you have a question, I'm going to read that question. I'll try and answer that question. And then we're going to wrap it up. Internet issues. Okay, no problem. It is good that you joined. All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll take a breather, 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll start with the second part. Okay? Thank you. Let me just run a timer here so that we all know when to come back. I just run it full screen. I shall see you when this hits 0, okay? Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, are we all back after the short break? You guys hear me? Let's start with the part two of the session. Hey guys, am I audible? Do you guys read me? Yes, Gopal? All right. So let's start with the second part now, in which I'll take your questions. So you type your questions on the chat window. I'll read and answer them one by one. The floor is yours. Yes, Kritika. Type the question. Okay. Kritika, I can see a hand raised from you. Or is it about if you can hear me? Was it about that? Akasik. Oh, but it prompted your name, isn't it? Okay. Anyways, Kausik, question.
Sir, I have a question related to hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me. Point is that see, as we have, as you told us that the entire raw data, work performance data, that goes to that comes from the direct and managed project work will goes to uh, some that monitoring and control process part for each and every knowledge area that the report has been consolidated, and then comes the work information report. sorry, that is performance work performance information. And from work performance information, it goes to monitoring and controlling project work process.
Mm-hmm.
And here my question is, in the monitoring controlling process, what actually is the work done on those particular consolidated process? Is it only some changes that has been noticed, or there is a specific format on which we have to put those data, or would they put this information from the scope, from the cost, from the schedule point of view, from each of the knowledge area? Actually, I want to know that what actually is the variance analysis, how it is been done.
Oh, well, that's variance analysis is very subjective to the area that you're talking about. Say, if you talk about schedule, when you do the variance analysis in terms of schedule and the cost, you're going to use on value analysis. Whereas when it comes to the scope variance, you're going to check it against the scope baseline, right? When it comes to the quality, you're going to check them against the quality parameters that you have defined as a part of the matrices, right? When it comes to the resources, you check it against the resource availability, the resource usage, the problems that you're facing. When it comes to monitoring the risk, you check about the residual risk and the secondary risk and contingent response strategies. When it comes to controlling the procurement, you check those agreements. You check if you need to modify those agreements. Should we close those agreements if the work gets over? Pay the contractor. When it comes to communication, we check how effective my current communication strategy is. Do I have to change that strategy? Because, of course, I cannot change the stakeholders. In stakeholder engagement, we monitor that the stakeholders are engaged enough to contribute into the project execution and decision making. So, all of these processes, very specific to what area. I just talked about all of them right now, right? Right from the scope to the stakeholders. So, when you have the data, why it is called the data at the first place? Because this is raw. This is a raw observation from the site that you got from the execution process. And you're just trying to put that into perspective against all of these knowledge areas, right? Now, the methods may differ, right, for every single knowledge area. Eventually, what's going to happen, some information will come out from all of these areas, right? Now, I cannot give 10 different pieces of information to my stakeholders. I cannot say this is what the scope said, this is what the schedule said, this is what the cost said, this is what the quality said. That's where I need to consolidate that, right? So when you go to the first process of monitoring control in monitoring controlling process group, which is the monitoring controlling project work, that's where you consolidate in all of that. Now, when it comes to the format, that's the second part of your question. When it comes to the format is specific to the organization, right? So it might come from the PMO, or even the project manager can take a call, sit in with the team, that how should we present this information to the stakeholders, right? You can take the inputs from the stakeholders as well, that what are their communication expectations, what exactly is the information that they want to get, from this project. When we do day in day out execution, what exactly do they wish to know? Might be they might be interested more on cost and less on the other areas, or maybe the scheduling is the priority for them because there is a target date, and by that date, let's say we need to launch a product, right? In that case, they are not very concerned about the cost, but more concerned about the schedule. So based on those requirements, you can either set up your own format for the work performance reports, or you could go back, check with the PMO if there is a standard format for that. You can utilize that as well. I hope that answers.
Yeah, that somehow I can understand what you mean to say. But there, what I mean to say, that from this all the knowledge areas, whatever the information comes out, there is there that as per the project is concerned, it doesn't culminate into a single opinion. That I mean to say, it will vary according to the knowledge area, and on that basis we have to understand, we have to do those input reinstated accordingly and get that information, right?
Okay. Is that a question?
No, is it
This is
that?
exactly what I just explained to you. You see, variance analysis is a different part. Variance analysis is when you're trying to get the information out of that data. Okay. That's one part of it. The second part is that when it comes to consolidation, on what basis I'm going to prepare a format for that consolidation, right? Now, this is what I just answered. It is based on what my stakeholders wish to see, what they wish to know from the project, right? Now, if that's a project which is under the PMO can also take a call that all right. So I the PMO wants the project manager and the team to tell these areas from the project and explain to the stakeholders the status in those particular areas. Otherwise, you can also reach out to the senior stakeholders of the project, say your sponsor or maybe say your customer, right, and ask them. And when it comes to the communication strategy, because if you talk about managed communication, which is the execution process, you would see that one of the outputs from there is also, along with the minutes of meetings, it is work performance reports. So the work performance reports that you're generating in monitoring control, and you are sharing that report by going into managing communication, right? And that's where I said these two areas work in parallel in tandem with each other, right? So it also depends upon what are the needs of the stakeholders. So you do that analysis during your communication management plan, right? And then accordingly, you define the frequencies, you define the level of information that you wish to share, who you're going to share it with, when you're going to share it, and what should be the intensity of that information. So based on all of that, you will come up with a format. Now, you will keep on checking with the stakeholders in monitoring the stakeholder engagement and monitoring communication processes. You'll keep on checking with the stakeholders that does that suffice your requirements? Uh, I mean, are you happy with this format? Do you want me to change these formats? Do you want me to add a few more things to it, right? Now, that all comes with a consistent monitoring control in which is going on along with the execution, right? So, format is a very, you can say it's a very subjective discussion point, right? So, it is very subjective to all the stakeholders which are there inside in your project, right? You know the process, you're going to follow the same process, but then when it comes to the reporting, the reports may differ from one organization to the other organization, from one domain to the other domain, one industry to the other industry. It may all vary. You need to see what fits your requirement, what fits the requirement of your stakeholders. That's the crisp answer to it.
So, do we have that sort of format in your template section?
I
If you have,
do. If you go and check, I have given you the work performance information, and in fact, I have also given you work performance report templates there. If you
okay,
want more, just ping me. I'll send you more
okay, okay. Thank you.
specific to the industry. If you want, I can figure out a few from that industry.
Okay, 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 sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you,
In
sir.
AHL thank you for that, Kaushik. In AHL projects, once the DoD is met, the sponsor adds the photo scope. Will this be considered as the same project, and do we initiate another project with the additional requirements as the scope? Good question, Kritika. You see, once the DoD is checked, before you go for the final release, the product owner can still add the features and they'll be called as a part of the same project. He can up to the last day. Okay, that's the answer. If the final release, the handover happened, then it's a separate project. If the handover was not happening, didn't happen yet, let's say you are at the hardening sprint right now, right? The iteration H right now. And that's when if the product owner says, hey, Sachin, last moment change, I know that, but can that be done? So if it is feasible, if we have the bandwidth, if we have the resources, if we have the time available, the money available, the resource capabilities with us, we can go ahead and do that. So yeah, it's going to be called as the part of the same project. I plan to give the PMP certification exam in Jan 2026. What all I need to get myself registered? Where do I need to get myself registered for the? Absolutely yes. If you're planning to write the exam in Jan, you should have taken the date by now. So I told you three parts on the last day. One, take the membership. Two, submit the application. Wait for, to get it reviewed by the PMI. The moment the PMI gives you the acceptance that your application has been accepted, go ahead, go to the Pearsons, which is the partners, the test partners, with the PMI and book the exam. Then only you'll be able to give the exam. So, yes, I thought if you're planning Jan, you should have done it by now. All right. Any other question?
Hello.
Yes. Post approval from the PMI, what is the approximate wait period to take in the exam? Once the approval comes, you have 1 year to write the examination from the date of the approval. Any changes in syllabus, into a lot of changes in syllabus in 2026, a lot of those, I can tell you that right now, but they'll be implemented from April. So we, the instructors, already got that kit, the instructor kit. I saw that and I was like, my mind was boggled. PMI did drastic changes, right? And the new format will be applicable from 1st of July. If my memory serves me right, from 1st of July, the PMI would start taking the exams on the new format. So we have April, May, and June to train the people, equip them with the new one, right? So that is why I would suggest you, if you're planning to write the exam on the current format, do that before 1st of April. Do that. You still have like 4 or 5 months, 4.5 months. Do it. 3.5 months, actually. How long it takes for the approval? 1 week. You submit the application. Within a week, you're going to get a response from the PMI. Okay. If you're targeting to write the exam, I would recommend every single one of you to target before the 1st of April. It's official, by the way. We already got the new kits, the instructors. We got the kits now. We need to prepare ourselves. These are so many changes, I tell you. They have changed the whole ECO, they have changed the whole format, they have changed the number of questions, the amount of time, the types of questions. They have done a lot of changes. We cannot talk about it right now because the PMI very clearly instructed us in the portal that do not leak out any of that information, right? And it's a recorded line that goes onto the YouTube. So I would not take a deep dive into it, that what exactly are those changes. But I can tell you there are quite a few changes. Okay. And that would happen every 3 years. This last happened when the bomb was dropped on us, was in the month of May in the year 2020 when the corona pandemic was going on. That's when the PMI changed drastically. Now they are changing in 2026. If I want to give the exam in April, then it will be on the new format or the old. Before 1st of July, that's going to be on the old format. Before 1st of July. From 1st of July onwards, on the new. This is the information that we have as on today. Okay, that might change tomorrow, so you have to keep checking with the PMI. All of that information is available at pmi.org. Or you can check with any of the support team members. They can also give you those updates. What will the pass mark in the as in plan as per the PMI? Officially, nowadays the PMI says that you need to score 80% in all the three domains. You score 80% on all three, you pass the exam. So a margin of 20%, which is a big margin actually. The PMI in many things going back to the previous format, the pre-2020 format, right? Back into our times in a few areas, right? So that's a good part. But then they have, included. Okay, one thing that I can tell you, in the future, there would be more questions from the HR, less from the predictive, and more from the hybrid and HL. Okay, the business, the third domain, the business environment will come up in a big way. Okay, right now it is only 8%, as we know. In the new environment, that's going to be around 24% of the total exam, which is a lot. 24%. Any other question, guys? Yep, that's the same. Kaushik. Can we have more than 20 questions for these Q&As? On weekly, in these Q&A sessions, I believe 20 is a good number because if you increase that, then you're going to have very little or no time to talk about anything else, right? So you'll just come, you'll do the Q&A, you answer 30 questions, and then you're going to move out, right? So the whole idea behind these sessions that I do is to support you with any queries and doubts and questions as well, not only to check your current preparation level, but also to answer these questions. So I just want to keep a combination of 1 hour for that and 1 hour for the other. At times we take 1.5 hours just to do the questions. Remember, just like in the previous class, in the previous Q&A. So yeah, I believe 20 is a fair number. If I was you, I wouldn't want to increase that. How many tries we could give under one registration? When you say one registration, you're talking about the registration with the PMI, you're talking about the registration for the examination. Vinod? One exam fee, one try. Yes, if that's the question. Once you pay the fee, that fee gives you one attempt. You fail that attempt, God forbid, right? Then you have to repay for the next attempt. You can do 3 attempts in 1 year. Okay? So let us say in 8 months somebody gave 3 attempts and failed, then this guy needs to wait for 4 months, complete the whole year, then for the next year only he'll have 3 more. But then nobody wants to give 4 attempts, would they? What about multiple responses and fill in the blanks and matching questions? Is it applicable till April? For now, what I heard from my participants that from 1st of November onwards, a lot of them who gave the exam, they said 99% of the questions in the examination, they were based on real life scenario based questions, right? Very less questions are coming, which is a good thing actually. Very less questions are coming from the numericals. A lot of my participants said, "Hey, professor, there was no numerical question." I said, "Good for you guys, isn't it?" Right? Because everybody hates numerical. This is what I know about you. Because you said in my classes, whenever we do the numericals, you're like, "Ah, Jesus, do we have to do these?" Right? So it's a good thing in one end, right? But then, somebody like me would prefer the numericals, right? Because those are easy pickings for me. So yes, from 1st of November, they're not asking you anything from, and they also said that no question from the fill in the blanks and match-ins. But I cannot confirm this. You know why? Because whenever I check with the PMI says it's still the same format, right? So officially, I cannot comment on that. But what I heard from the participants, I can tell you that. You mentioned about the last week Q&A is available on the YouTube. Okay, just go and search IMC certifications. Just search that bit on the search bar on the YouTube. You're going to find the channel. A project that is behind the schedule due to unforeseen technical issues. The team has identified a solution, but implementing it will require additional time and resources. Meanwhile, the project sponsor is becoming increasingly anxious about the delay and has asked for the progress report. What should you do next? Give me the options. What are the options, Kasim? Any other question, ladies and gentlemen? Update the project sponsor on the new technical solution and the expected impact on the schedule and the budget. Implement the solution immediately to catch up on the schedule before informing the sponsor. Review the project management plan to identify potential answer areas where time and cost can be saved. Schedule a meeting with the project sponsor to discuss the potential changes to the project scope and the schedule. You tell me, what do you think is the answer? I know the answer. What about rest of us? There is a question on the chat window. What do you guys think? What's the answer? Qasim, what's your answer? Praveen, anybody? Look at the chat window. You have a question on the chat window. Qasim goes, Charlie, review the project management plan to identify the potential areas where the time and cost can be saved. Okay. Okay, fair enough. Okay. So what's the principle of the PMI? We had 3 questions similar to this one today. The principle is analysis and the action. That's the hint to answer that question. Now read the question and the solutions and give me the right answer. Come on. I just literally gave you the answer already. Analysis, then the action. Okay, forget about it. My answer is delta. Tell me the right answer, Qasim. I'll go delta. Okay, meanwhile, any other questions? Vinod, Raghu, Ashik, Kritika, Praveen? You have questions related to any doubts, anything related to the exam preparation, what we should do? Did you guys read that one book that I told you to read? Are you done reading that? Yeah? Whoever is preparing for the examination? Not yet? When would you start that then? When is your exam, Kritika? Did you book the exam yet? Did I tell you 6 participants passed the exam yesterday? All from your, you know, they are all your classmates. They are all from the IMC. Now go check my LinkedIn wall today. I shared all of these yesterday. I was super happy. 6 is a good number in one day. It's a good number. My exam is on coming Sunday. Okay, then you have a week. Okay. Samir, I'm writing that name on the chat window. I cannot say that because you know it's a recorded line, right? That's the name of the book. Okay, it's on. I have that. Fantastic. Read this book cover to cover. After every chapter, this book would ask you 25 to 35 questions. Answer those questions. I know you're going to give a lot of those wrong answers. That's fine. That's okay. Go back, check why you gave a wrong answer. Fill those gaps. Not booked the exam planning for the Feb or March. Okay. But then your classes are over, Raghu, right? You were in one of my previous batches, right? You started reading the book? The one book? No, you were in Sashi's? Okay. Fantastic instructor, Sashi. Amazing, amazing instructor. Love the way that he trains. But there's a lot of difference between his method of training and my method of training. I find myself feeble in front of Sashi. Very unorthodox I am as compared to him. Any other question? Manakshi is good. She's good. And instructors are very good nowadays. Very, very good. Back in our times, we had very limited choices, right? So, not many instructors back then. I'm talking about what, 2005, 2006. A few of you may be very, very young back then. What were you doing in 2006? Tell me. Maybe in college, a few of you. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Good, Gopal. Then you are a very experienced guy. What's your total experience? So when you say 80% answers should be correct in each module, getting 25. That's the same experience. This is what I thought. I've got 25. So when you say 80% correct answer should be correct in each module, that means 48 out of 60 in case of the first 60. Absolutely. And that's a fair number. You have a margin of 12 wrong answers in one set. I believe that's a very good number. I'm just waiting for you to ask me the questions if you have more questions. They don't type your score on the PMP certificate. No, they don't. They don't give you the score either. They just tell you that if you are above target, on target, below target, if you need improvements, they give you the grades. They never disclose how many marks you got. And pass each of the modules, yes. Vinod. Any hints for pass answer in fast exam? Okay, I gave a few during the class on the last day. One I told you today during the class, during this Q&A. If it is not specified specifically that it's an HL project or a hybrid project, it is by default a predictive project. That's one. The second is that the PMI, if the PMI is not telling you explicitly that it's a small project, say a pilot project or a very small project, then by default it's a big project. Okay? Then it's a big project. It has at least 50 team members. It has a budget of $1 million. So you need to by default consider that. Okay? When you read the questions in the examination, read the first line of the question, then immediately jump to the last line of the question. Let me explain what I'm saying. The first line of the question says you are managing a multi-million dollar predictive methodology project. That's the first line. The last line says what you should do next. Okay. Now you go back and read the whole question. Because while you're reading the question, your brain already knows that at the end of the question, the PMI is going to ask me that what should I do next, right? Now you will read the whole question from that angle. You understand that? So it's a big trick, I tell you. So read the last line. Know upfront what the PMI is going to ask you in the future. Now, when you're reading the question, it becomes easy for you because you are looking at it that, okay, so PMI is going to ask me what I should do next. Okay, so let me just read. Okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. What should I do next? Oh, this happened, this happened. What should I do next? So your brain tells you. to read it from that direction, right? So the question becomes easy. It's a hint. What about layer? On which layer? More to answer. No such caution.
पाकिस्तान से लेके आ गया उसकी बीवी लेके आ गई
Uh, somebody has an unmuted microphone here. Let me just mute all. Okay. There is no such defined rule for that, Kaushik. That from which layer, whichever is in the logical layer, right? So the answer is going to be, and the question is the PMI's choice. That at times just to trick you, they're going to have multiple layers. You should be able to eliminate those, unnecessary information, right? What will be exam day mostly? What that question is? What will be exam day mostly? I'm not able to comprehend with that question. Rephrase that for me. Okay, another question from Kasim. Hey, Kasim, you did not tell me what was the answer to the last question, the previous question that you asked. Was that Delta? You're managing a hybrid project that involves both the agile and the waterfall teams. The agile team is responsible for developing the feature iteratively, while the waterfall team handles documentation, regulatory approvals, and the final system integration. The agile team has completed several iterations, but the waterfall team is struggling to keep up with the pace of the documentation and the approvals. This discrepancy is causing delay in integration. Okay, what should you do to resolve this issue? All right. Slow down the agile team development and allow the waterfall cannot happen. Alpha can never be the answer. Implement the sprint buffer in the agile team's iterations and give the waterfall team time to complete. Bravo is not the answer. Schedule regular synchronization meetings between both the teams to align their schedule and the priorities. Potential answer. Transfer the waterfall team to the agile so that no, cannot be the answer. The answer is Charlie. Simple. That's the answer. The answer to the previous question was also Charlie, Kasim. How did you do the implementation without, how did you use the buffers without doing the analysis? No, I disagree. If you're taking those questions from any of the AI tools, do not trust them. I can tell you that right now. What is, you tell me what's buffer? Anybody? What's buffer? Or Slack? Or float? What is it? What are the areas in ways of work and comes in the exam? What are the area in ways of working comes from in exam? Say that again.
Sir, I mean to say that the area on the process part,
Huh?
there are what are the knowledge areas mostly the question comes from, that a major area, that so that we can cover up that pass percentage. That is, you told us that we need to score 80% from each.
Very strong processes in scope, schedule, cost, and quality. These are the key areas.
Okay.
Scope, schedule, cost, quality. If you ask me the toughest questions in the exams, they come from the procurement. Trust me. The toughest of the questions.
But the
will be
percentage
from
will
procurement.
be not much, I hope so.
Uh-huh.
But the questions may not be so much from the procurement. Maybe the toughest, or
You may have less number of questions from procurement, but they're going to be the toughest to answer.
okay. Okay.
So the float is the flexibility on the critical path, right? So when you calculate the critical path, the early start, early finish, late start, late finish, The float is the amount of flexibility, the amount of time that you can delay a project activity without delaying the end date of the project. That is called the float. And you cannot take a call to use that without doing an analysis, because then it puts many of those other activities onto the critical path if you keep it in the float, right? So you have to sit, you have to do the analysis, then you need to take the action. I will still go with the delta on the previous question. This question, Charlie, is the answer. Straightforward. It was delta. Yes, Gopal? Bingo. That's what I said. That's what I said. All right, I can still take one more question. Anybody, if you have any other question, use the chat box. You want to do another session next week? Another 20 questions? You want to do that? When will be the next Q&A? Next week I'm not available. Next week I can do it. So this free service that I provide you is because I really want you to prepare well. Okay? But then I have some limitations in next week. So I can do it next week. Should I go ahead, plan that? I just did, Kasim. You did not hear that, buddy. Float, slack, buffer, fancy names, they all means the same thing. The amount of time that you can delay an activity without delaying the end date of the project. Can you tell me about the exam centers in India? What about it? The exam centers are India. You want the locations? All over India. Yeah. New Delhi has two. One in Gurugram, one in South Delhi. You have two in Bengaluru, you have one in Hyderabad, you have one in Pune, two in Mumbai. What area are we talking about? No, the exam center is not in Noida. So you have to go the times. If my memory serves me right, on the MG Road on Gurugram, the Time Star. So there is a center there. Nagpur. Just go and search. Go to the Pearson VUE. Go to the website, enter your location, and they'll show you the list of the nearest test centers. In Delhi, you have one in Gurugram. I would prefer you to go to Gurugram Center. I mean, nothing against the New Delhi Center, but the Gurugram facility, because I have seen that facility, so I can tell you it's a good one. That's not too far. Nowadays, at least. Noida is like you're talking about my area, right? So the East Delhi. Al Khaimah, I don't know. The Riyadh, you have one in Riyadh, you have one in Jeddah. Al Khaimah, why not check? Is there any queue for taking the exams once we get the approval from the PMI? No, there is no wait-in period. You can book the exam for the next day as well, provided the center has the slot available. So you have to check with the exam centers that what are the open slots with them. They're going to show you a calendar that on these dates, these slots are available, the morning slot, the afternoon, the evening slots, right? So, yep. And that's what I said. The Gurugram Center is, they can run 5, I believe, 5 PMP exams in parallel, right? So you're going to find the availability quite easily there. Dubai has 2 or definitely one that I know. Dubai has one. Abu Dhabi has one. So yeah, anybody who's in the UAE, you can write those exams from there. Yes, you have one in Dubai. Which link? Test centers. Yes, that's one. Vinod. That's the one. Open that link. Any one of these. they all are from Pearson, right? Are they from the Pearson? Yeah, just go to anyone. Just enter your geographical location and search. They'll show you the list. All right. Awesome. Good enough, guys. So I'll plan another session next to next week on Sunday at the same time. Okay. And the team will send you the link for the registration. Make sure that you register for that. I have another session starting from 2, so 2 to 6. I've got one. Then I've got one in the evening from 8:30 to 12:30. So good for today. Thank you so much for joining today's session. My name is Sachin, and I shall see you in the next Q&A. Thank you. God bless you. Prepare well. Prepare well for the examination. Bye-bye.